The first GOP debate's Wednesday night, and it's in Milwaukee. Notably absent will be former President Donald Trump. But joining us right now, 2024 Republican presidential hopeful Perry Johnson. Good morning, Perry. Thank you for joining us.
Well, good morning, and I'm delighted to be here.
Well, news just came out yesterday, right? It appears that you have qualified for the first debate, so congratulations.
Congratulations.
And I'll just ask you, when you're on the stage on Wednesday, walk us through a little bit of how you prepare for something like that. I think a lot of people back home don't realize there's a lot of work that goes into a debate. Can you talk to us a little bit about your preparation?
Well, the bottom line is you have to see what the format is. They're going to be asking questions, and you have to kind of prepare for what questions they're going to ask. The bottom line is, in my case, it doesn't take a whole lot of preparation because I've made my position very clear. I actually have a plan. I wrote a book, 2 Cents to Save America, and the concept is quite simple. We have serious issues here. The most serious issue we have is the economy, and the government has spent so much money, they've spent us into oblivion, and now we are $33 trillion in debt. Now, the consequence of that is extreme. That's the reason we have inflation. People don't understand often why we even have the situation we have, but for 20 years, we couldn't get inflation above 2%. And then the government decided that they were going to throw an extra $4.5 trillion into the economy without supplying goods and services. Well, there you go. The Inflation Reduction Act, for example. How can that possibly reduce inflation when what we've done is essentially throw more money into the economy, incentivizing people to go and buy more electric cars? The whole idea of throwing more and more money into the economy, rendering our country in a more precarious position, makes no sense. In fact, we only collect $4.9 trillion in taxes each year. So our indebtedness is roughly almost 7 times what we take in a year.
Yeah.
And
Just to cut you off there, sorry, but you just mentioned that you've outlined how there is issues here with inflation, and you said you have a plan. What is that plan?
Well, my plan is to change the way in which the government does business. They have gone out of their way to make sure that they spend every penny of every dollar every year. They start in April, and by the end of September, they are broke. In fact, they make sure they're broke, and every department makes sure they're broke so they can get more money the next year. What a nutty way to operate. I say we freeze the budget, and we cut 2 cents out of every dollar of discretionary spending. And we incentivize the management to do just that. If they do that, they get a bonus. If they don't, they don't. And in certain areas, we can get rid of whole departments. Think of the Department of Education, 4,400 people, $68 billion, with only 8% of the money going to grades K through 12. That's a department we can just literally get rid of and then send the money directly to the states and have them distribute the money. Let's keep the government out of our lives.
I think that's a good point. A lot of people would probably agree with you that minimizing government would be a good thing. I think most people want to spend their money themselves, not have the government spend it. But can I take a look at the Iowa caucus? You know, there was a poll from earlier this month, Donald Trump leading the nearest competitor by, I think, 25% there if you look at it. Tim Scott next closest at 8. Perry, you're not registering yet on these polls right now. How do you plan on making, the run here and getting your name out there and getting those numbers up?
Well, pretty much everybody knows that Donald Trump is so far ahead that there is almost no one in second place, with the possible exception of DeSantis, who at one time was at near 40% and now is in the teens. Because everybody is a long shot except for Donald Trump. But we all know the race really begins on the debate stage. And you really don't know a candidate until you actually get to hear the candidate, you get to hear him think, you get to see what he says, you have an idea of what this person is all about. And bottom line is, I'm looking forward to it, and Wednesday should be exciting. Let's get an opportunity to let the world see exactly what I think. And I think my 2 cent plan will resonate. By the way, the Iowa caucus is only 5 months away, and I'm the only guy with a plan.
Well, we've got 5 months until then and a couple of days until Wednesday. Good luck on the debate stage. We're all very excited to see what happens on Wednesday night. Perry Johnson, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate having you on.
Thank you, and enjoy life.